Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another morning space with me, Kalu Aja. On here, of course, we're talking money, the economy, and of course, finance. And we want to make it personal to you. How can the money topics of the day or the week or the month enhance your, should we say, financial education? How can you be a better investor? That's what we do when we're here. So, guys, essentially, I have a guest today, Mr. Ayodeji Ebo. The title is Investing in a Period of High Inflation and Weakening Naira. We know Nigeria is going through high inflation, about 33% annual inflation rate in Nigeria right now. And of course, the Naira is weakening. We're at about, if you believe, whatever number you want to pick, is going to be from, say, 1650 to about 173 if you're doing the parallel or the official. So, how can an investor that is earning Naira navigate this high inflation and, of course, the weakening Naira? What are the sectors? How should we do it? What is the timing involved? That's what I want to talk to Mr. Ayodeji about today. So, good morning, sir, or good evening, Mr. Ayodeji. Please go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself, and then let's just start going.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Kalu, and it's great to be here again. Thanks for all the good job you are doing. Uh, so I'm an investment professional, and I love to educate people on investment. I'm trying to bridge the knowledge gap in investment. Thank you.
I appreciate that very, very short and humble introduction, Mr. Ayo. Again, congratulations on you being a doctor. I saw that you just became a PhD holder. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
All right, welcome. So let's just maybe just introduce and define the topics that we want to talk around today. Inflation, very, very hard to define. What we see is the effect of the inflation. So you have a Naira today in January 1st, 2024. As at today, that Naira would have lost about 33% of its value if you just held Naira today. We have Naira, maybe big up this year, anywhere from 700 Naira or maybe 1,000. Now it's 1,700. So let's just define those issues. Economics will say we have stagflation, which is high inflation and high unemployment. So let's zero in on the issues. What's your take on what's going on in Nigeria right now, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. And it's an interesting topic, and also, like you rightly said, before we even go into the different investment option, it's also good to lay background, understand what these terms are. So, taking it off from high inflation, we know that in Nigeria, inflation is published on a monthly basis, but and is measured yearly. So what it means is that the data, so we have what we said, inflation baskets, that the government would take a measure of the different products. Sometimes I think about 3,000 or 7,000 products is always in that basket and measures the prices of those products. So if I would say, for instance, if the price of yam, for instance, last year was 500 and this year is 1,000. So they would match, or let me put it this way, September 2023 was 500 and September 2024 was 1,000. So inflation will be calculated if it's only for yam, for instance, 1,000 divided by 500 to know what the year-on-year growth is. So most times what we see, as at September, inflation grew to about 32.7% after two consecutive decline, which was for August and July. Now, with that 32, if we want to use that number, 32.7, which is the average prices of the goods items that have been captured in the inflation basket. And what that means is that the price, if something was costing 1,000 or cost rather 1,000 Naira last year, September, it's going to cost about 1,300 Naira. On the flip side too, if you are holding 1,000 naira without adding value to it. And that's why the topic Mr. Carlo has chosen is very topical. That 1,000 will be worth about 700 naira now. Yes, we can also speak and say that even the 32% looks very mild if you are using this data. Cost of, when you pick some items, or most items, some have even increased by 300%, right? If you go to the supermarket now, what you buy with 100,000 naira last year, it's same quantity of things. If you pick them, you would averagely you spend between 250 and 300,000. So it means that there is a need to pay attention. What can be done as an individual, as a potential investor? What do you have to do? Because if we also look at the outlook, there are inflationary pressures. So if we look at what was one of the major singular factors that has brought us here, was the floating of the Naira. And I would say it's a no-brainer because we always say Nigeria is import dependent. That's even from secondary school when you're economics, that Nigeria is import dependent. Means everything is tied to the FX. So floating the Naira has caused a major destabilization in the economy. So you know that fuel prices, before it was manageable for even government to pay subsidies. With the devaluation, the more the Naira depreciates, the more Naira the government needs to cough out to bridge that gap. We saw even for power, it became unsustainable. And a lot of other items are not even now subsidized. Everything, but even now, when you want to buy house or land, they benchmark it in dollars. And some services, even if they are giving you the Naira amount, they are benchmarking it to dollars. So I would say one of my friends said some weeks ago that already our cost of living is already matching with that of developed countries in dollar terms, but the income has not matched up to that amount in dollar terms. So you would see the mismatch. So it's important to pay much attention to the inflation rate. So now looking at the exchange rate, which is always, we say, the elephant in the room. I started with the major costs of the floating. We don't have, so what has happened is we don't have the war chest to float the Naira. Personally, what I've always advocated for is a managed float, which means that when you see that there's a need to adjust, why we always see that gap is that we don't adjust the Naira when we are supposed to. So a total floating of the Naira has without sufficient FX. Yes, reserve is above $40 billion, right? Mm-hmm. But when you also still check the supply, please let me know if I need to.
No, your audio is good. Go ahead.
Background, yeah. So you would see that when you check the FX in terms of the pressure that we are seeing, is the demand, because what people have seen that Naira does not have the store of value. If we look at basic economics, when you look at what are the advantages of money, we speak about the store of value apart from being transactional. So now, with what has been seen in the last 2 years, and it happened so fast, there's no confidence to hold the Naira anymore. Because if you were supposed to purchase a house 2 years ago, now you will need ×3 to get that same type of building. ×3 of that amount to get that same type of building. So that FX is also a critical sector, critical variable that the government needs to look at. Yes, government from their own hand, it's been beneficial to them because they receive money in dollars and share in Naira. So it means, as we are saying that cost of things have doubled or increased by 300%, FAC allocation too has increased by 300%. I'm not going to go into the politics of what the FAC or what FAC should be used for. But what we are here to discuss is, how can we now, once we know that there is a problem, I don't think there's any clear roadmap now to solving the problem in the interim. So, because to have this sustained, we need to develop our non-oil exports. The CBN is trying its best around that, other remittances, trying to see how we can improve that. But by and large, I would say that there's a need to pay attention to these two variables. Thank you.
Okay, just to be clear, so if I hear you say the float was more or less necessary, or you don't really agree with the full float per se, the argument from the other side is going to be that the government just couldn't maintain that fixed, NAFEX to Naira peg.
No, like I said, there's what we call, there's a mix, depending on the type of economy. There's what we call managed floats. Managed floats happens is when you see that there's a need to adjust it. If you adjust it on time, there will be, once there's confidence that people know that as long as you see that you can no longer defend at this level, you adjust. What we had before this total float was a total fixed FX management regime, total fixed, that we did not adjust when we're supposed to adjust, and we moved to the extreme of a total float. So there's that middle gap that even economics have, that if you cannot, depending on your economy, if you cannot afford to fully float, then do manage. You study things and you move from time to time, not having the fluctuation on a daily basis, which now led to, without sufficient supply. It was recently that supply improved. I think that there should have been work on getting improved supply first. Or seeing a traction on how you would have sufficient supply or buffer to supply before just lifting that, using the floating rate.
So just to be clear, you would have preferred, because it was below 500, maybe would have gone to say 700 fixed, 800 fixed, gradually.
Yes.
Yeah, because the argument again on the other side, and again I've made that argument, is that the Nigeria cannot afford the peg. The peg means that we have to have the reserves, and we just found out after Emefiele left and after we had the audit of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigeria was owing these swap loans to JP Morgan and some other banks. So out of that 30 billion, our real reserves was about 3 to 7 billion, depending on who you believe. So if you're the CBN governor and you come into office, new administration, and you are looking at $3 billion, which is not enough to cover maybe 2 or 3 months of imports, perhaps that's why they just had to go all out and say, listen, we're going to float this thing just to rebuild our reserves.
Yes, I think that. That was because we had not adjusted for a long time.
True.
So it should have been a managed float and not a total.
Okay, gotcha. So now for the Nigerian investor in us, I always hear this. They want the foreigners to bring in dollars. So you bring in your dollars to Nigeria. You can buy. In the past, we used to have this 5-year forward FX market. So if I was in the United States, I could bring in dollars into Nigeria and immediately buy a 5-year fixed going out of Nigeria. So that way I have covered my foreign exchange exposure. I know if I bring money in, I can buy 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, even up to 5 years to take my money out. That market no longer exists. So we now have a situation, which is why we're doing this space, where we now have Nigerians. I saw the CBN governor in the New York World Bank event talking to Nigerians that they want to issue a Nigerian or a dollar bond in America to Nigerians to invest in diaspora and bring the money back home into Nigeria. With the current situation, do you think that sort of dollar bond in Nigeria or diaspora bond, do you think that is something that the foreigners there or even Nigerians should then take? Maybe we're getting too ahead of ourselves, but what do you think on that?
Yeah, so I think that it's a positive one to bring in dollars, and we know that we are also not in a situation where we won't have effects to repay. Yes, situations may look very dim, but we still earn in FX because we're always quickly to look at what happened in Ghana. We are not. We believe that because we still earn a lot, even in FX, we will still have the ability to repay. And when you look at yields in developed economies, so you see the diaspora bond, the last one that was done at 9.75. We had a lot of Nigerians just have FX just sitting in their bank accounts, not earning anything. And this provided an opportunity for them to earn almost 10% on their dollars for the next 5 years. So it's positive while it's providing liquidity even for the government. On the other hand, it's also providing additional hedge for an return even for the investors. So, when you look at remittances or bringing funds home, what normally discourage is the rate at which, at what rate if you have to also convert. So, with the unification that we have across different FX markets now, most the unification, it has reduced that round tripping or having to use the
unofficial and parallel market. Yeah, we'll go
yes.
back and forth. Okay, so let's just get into it, sir. If I'm a Nigerian as well and I'm in Nigeria, I earn in Naira, maybe I earn $1 million or whatever in Naira. What then are the options for me to invest, or how can I navigate this high inflation and weakening Naira? What are the pathways for me in terms of asset classes and even timing?
Okay, thanks. The first thing you need to first realize is minimum of 40 to 50% must be in dollar denominated assets.
Wow.
Yes, you may say, oh, we are going to put more pressure on it, but when you look at even the ability, the percentage of people even trying to invest relative to those that just buy to preserve value. So here we are talking about investment. We are not talking about speculating on the Naira. So when you want to, you need to have. So and when we talk about dollar denominated assets, the first thing is you look at. We just spoke about the diaspora bond. Then that happened last time, but you also look for high yield dollar savings platforms that are reputable and regulated, rather than living. So I've had instances that even for almost 2 years discussing with top clients, and they just tell you, my dollars have been in my bank account for 2 years, for 3 years, not any return. So there's a need to have it in dollar high yield fixed income. Then you can also look at US stocks and ETFs. So I will start with ETF, which is exchange traded funds. It's a basket of stocks. This helps. It helps you to minimize your risk. If you don't want to, if you are the type you don't understand stocks, you don't want to be following when they pay dividend, then look for top ETFs. So I would say, for instance, the Vanguard 500 S&P 500 VOO that tracks the top 500 large companies listed on the US stock exchange. This year alone, it has returned 22.6%. Look at the Vanguard Total Stock Index fund. So you just want to invest in ETF that tracks almost the 8,000 stocks in the US market. You don't even want to know, invest individually, which helps you to even diversify. It has returned 21% this year. The SPD hard gold ETFs, which commodities, so which I also still speak about. If you want to invest in commodities, you can invest in ETFs that tracks them. That ETF has returned 32.5%. In the last 5 years, the return average of about 11 to 15%. QQQ is also, I'm just trying to make it practical for those that you want to invest in ETFs. But yes, you can check their 5-year trend on Google Finance, on Yahoo Finance. So there's nothing hidden. You would see that even when market is down, yes, they may be down, but they always come back to surpass their previous highs. KKK has done about 23% this year. And yes, you also have the IWM, the Rochelle 2000 ETF. So you need to buy ETF. So what I would advise that you do is just set a certain amount. So there are platforms that allows you to input Naira and convert to dollars. You just buy, and the interesting thing is this platform also allows fractional shares. So as low as $1, you can invest. You can start. So if it's $5, if it's $10, if it's $100, you want to be doing monthly, just start building it. So beyond the return that you get from that, you also get the Naira advantage when you value. So that's it on dollar. Okay.
So I'm just getting a DM. Someone is asking me if you could go over it again, because you are saying the ETFs, and the quick question I'm asking, the percentage return you are quoting, is that dollar return or Naira return?
Dollar return.
So that's the first question. Second question they're asking, so they would invest in Naira and get this dollar return?
Yes. So when you have some of those platforms, when you invest, you convert your money to dollars. So you're already in dollars. So rather than if you have access, I know how some of this platform works. If you have dollars, you can pay in dollars and purchase this same investment. But if you don't have it, you can also convert. You would see the rates on the platform before you do that, and you are able to purchase your dollars in your wallet. Then you can now buy those. The stocks are in dollars. The ETFs I'm speaking about, we're talking about dollar denominated. They are all in dollars, and all those returns are in dollars.
Okay, and then could we just get a quick rundown again from the top? I know, and if you could say if this is equity like it is, this equities, is commodities, just so that people can follow and people are writing it down.
Okay. So so starting with the dollar denominated assets, so you can put 60 to 70% of that 50% in a high yield fixed income, while you put between 30 to 40% in US stocks, which include, you can do a 50-50 or 60% in ETF. So, like what I was trying to explain is, if you are the type you don't need to monitor or want to research on each of the stocks, just go for ETFs. Very simple. Invest. That's almost the 30 to 40% of the 50% on that. So if we do dollar is about 50%, and we're saying real estate, for those that have the capital, real estate helps to preserve value too, because the assets, which is the building, the land, are also benchmarked in dollars. So you will see that the cost of this, they are also benchmarked in dollars. So you need to look at that. Then commodities, you can. So I'll put the percentage. I'll put on that. If you have the capital, so you can reduce what you have in your dollar denominated assets to about maybe 40% and do almost 20% in real estate. Yeah, so then you have when you come to Naira investment, so you can't afford to just leave your money in your savings account. You need to look for high yield fixed income investment. Currently, the treasury bills gives that, and commercial papers. Treasury bills is a government issued instrument, and commercial paper is a private issued instrument. So commercial paper, you have to ensure that it's well rated. Then you can also now look at Nigerian equities. Nigerian equities, where you have defensive stocks. The oil and gas sector has, because they earn in dollars, so you will see that for most of them have also done well this year. You need to look for that. So if I want to put everything down in percentage for high income earners, so I would say real estate 30%, foreign currency asset 25%, high yield fixed income 20%, equities 15%, alternative 5%, and cash 5%.
Wow.
For low income earners, I would say that foreign assets, currency assets at 40%, high yield fixed income at 30%, equities, both Nigeria and US at 15%, alternative assets at 10%, while cash at 5%.
Okay, and to be clear, what are alternatives? Is that Bitcoin or
Yes.
okay?
So and digital
Digital
assets.
assets. Okay. So another question I'm getting on my DM is what brokers in Nigeria? If I'm in Nigeria, I want to do this investment. I have, of course, Naira. What brokers are available for me to use, especially the ones that allow me to do fractional investing?
Okay. Yeah. So while you also carry out your due diligence, I would start with Optimus by Afri Invest. You also have Trove. You have Bamboo. Yes. I think we also have Chaka. Those are like the very popular ones that you can use, but just ensure that you know the companies they are affiliated with. And those companies are also registered with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as FINRA, that's the Financial Reporting Accounting Commission over there. So, yeah.
And again, if we just also talk about fractional shares, just so people understand what that means. Of course, that means that if you want to buy a stock of, say, for instance, VTI.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, VTI is about nearly $200, but with the fractionals, you can invest with just $10. So you can buy a fraction of it. You don't have to wait till you get the high amount. That's what we are doing.
Just to also add to that, when dividend is paid, you will also receive dividend. So if you have invested $20, which is like 20% of 1 unit, you would also get 20% of 1 unit when dividends are declared. If you have shares that you are investing in, NVIDIA you're investing in, you will always get the corresponding or the proportionate dividend of what you have.
And that dividend, again, just to be clarified, is paid in dollars into your wallet. Just to be clear again.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
It's paid in. So you're invested in dollars, you earn your return. When you sell your shares, you're also credited in dollars. So it's now left for you whether you want to take your proceed in dollars or you want to also, those platforms that I mentioned, you also have the option to convert it back to Naira at the prevailing rate.
Yeah.
Market rate, yeah.
Okay, and so we've got a guy that wants to speak. Again, this is just a simple way, like if explain of how to invest in a period of high inflation. I see you going towards changing and diversifying the currency that you are holding. So instead of just holding just Naira, I hear you say diversify that currency holding, diversify the asset classes that you're holding, and diversify the returns that you are going to earn from just Naira to other currencies that do not have that inflation that a Naira is currently carrying. So I've noted that down. Let me have a guy that wants to speak hop in here. Chimasam. Thanks for hanging in there. If Ayo is here, you can ask your question. But Chimasam just dropped off. So if you want to ask Ayo a question, DM me or request to speak, and I'll just add you. Miss Ayo, I have a lot of DMs here. Someone's asking what is the ROI of the high yield savings investment. It says Nigeria is paying about treasury bills about 20%. I know you every week you publish that fixed income rate every week or so. You publish it and I always share it. What is the ROI for dollar? If I had to invest in that, what would that ROI?
Okay, thanks. Currently, for just fixed, for say high yield savings account is between 5 to 10%, and depending on the volume, some can even go as high as 11 to 12% if you are investing in dollars. Yeah, so that's it for fixed income. When we say fixed, you already know your return. But if you are going into equities, those returns that I've earlier highlighted, even on the ETFs or any stock, it is the current return, and we say that does not guarantee what the future return would be. It is not guaranteed. The value of your portfolio can fluctuate. So, and in when we talk about investment, we say the higher the risk, the higher the return. So
Yeah.
you will need to understand your own investment objective, why you are putting money there, before you also want to make any investments in that space. Yeah.
Okay, I had someone that wanted to speak, but he's dropped off again. I'm not sure if it's a technical issue, but he dropped off again. But again, I got a question here, with your permission, Mr. Ayo. I'll just explain. He's asking if you could list the ETFs to buy. Remember, he's not asking you to go buy specifically. He sort of caveated that by saying if you are low income earner, if you are high income earner, then he gave a lot of ETFs in real estate, in fixed income, in commodities. So if you can, the space is going to be recorded. I'm going to ask him to see if he can tweet it out. But just remember that he is caveating based on your circumstance. So if you're a high income earner, low income earner, I was going to ask you, Mr. Ayo, why you, for the low income earners, why you sort of reduced their currency holdings. Is there a thinking towards that? I know the high income guys, you said they could hold a higher proportion of currencies, but the low income guys, you said a lower proportion. What's the thinking in there?
Okay, the thinking between that with that is for real estate. Yeah, you need substantial amount of money to begin to take position in that space. So that's why, like, for the high income earners that are located 30%. So you would see that that 30% that the low income earners would have allocated have also been spread across the other asset classes. So that's for real estate is also a form of hedge, because you can say practically prices are measured, or the costs of the value of the assets are measured, are almost tied to dollars. So you are almost still hedged. If you had real estate for foreign assets, that's almost 55%.
Gotcha. So just to come back, if let's talk about real estate and say equities in Nigeria. To buy stocks in Nigeria, if I have 10,000, I can buy. Lots of guys are coming in here with this lease to earn, or we have rates in the market. I noticed that the third highest paying investment in the Nigerian stock market is a REIT. I think it's the STS. I think the other two are banks, then it's the STS. So is property really, I've argued that property doesn't really give you the bang for the money, because of you invest high capital, then you get very, very low rental income. How are these guys in STS, or the REIT guys, how are they able to generate this high dividend returns on the same property that if I built a property, I wouldn't be able to generate? Do you have any insight on that?
Okay, yes. Yeah, so I think that there's also like a benchmark that maximum within 7 to almost 10 years you should be able to recoup if you are building. And that's part why also they look at the rentals if you are building. But I'm even speaking, if you invest, you may not, this is for investments.
Yeah.
People you can take advantage of off plan, lock in your money if you have someone that you trust, because it's high risk. If you don't have someone that you trust, or you have seen perform or deliver in the past consistently. Also, but if you also just buy the building, you know that with the current rate within the next 1 year, you are also able to sell it. Depending on the location is also important in real estate, and that's why I say for high income that you need to understand that space. You don't just go and buy land where Don't just go and buy land where even in the next 5 years there will be no development. That's throwing money away. Yes, it can develop in the next 20 years, but for you to also benefit, look at areas where you see that development has already reached the place or about to, then you also take advantage of that.
Okay, and I also have a question in terms of just holding my dollar. If I hold dollar, if I held dollar in January, today I've made money. Just that I held the dollar, I didn't invest it. People tell me that is their own way of investing. They just hold the dollar, and just the inflation translates to a return on investment for them. Is that true? I mean, I know what you're saying, but would you is that real? That just simply holding paper dollars and inflation, instead of it being a negative, then becomes a return for you, because once naira is there's inflation in naira, that translates to a return for me. What's your take on that, sir?
Okay, thanks. And this, like I mentioned, I hear a lot. I just want to just keep my dollars. I don't want to keep it in cash and anyhow. But why we are here is we want to be also be smarter. How can we add more value? So you see the last diaspora bond at 9.75%. So you put $1,000 and where that's at that time 9.75%, um 9.75%, you would see that when you look at the times $1,000, that's about $97.5 that you get extra. Times when you do at it, let's use 1.7, that's another 165,000 naira. That's you just get on $1,000, and you have people that have or close to about $50,000. This that's on $50,000. That's almost 8 million that you get in addition to the depreciation. So you want to maximize every opportunity. And here we are suggesting we're investing intelligently. We are not saying go and do FX trading. We are not saying put 100% in crypto to double your money. We're saying that try and identify things that will give you, if you are the type that don't want to take risks at all, even at 5%, at 7%, you should be, that's additional inflow. So at $1,000, that's additional $50 for you every year. That's almost 85,000 naira every year that comes to you, in addition to the naira value, return value that you would also get on your investment. So to be smarter, so you are smart already being in dollars, to also be smarter, why don't you invest money? And a lot of people that have had opportunities, these are people that are doing well in their career, they are very smart, they know it, but by the time they also, you put the numbers to it, they see what they have lost, and they begin to see, rather than leaving $100,000 in there
Lying around. Yeah.
you get, even if it's 5%, it's more than sufficient.
So, guys, you've heard it now. Just don't hold the dollar. Stay invested. Even if it's one or two, stay invested. Let me bring in the Main Street Analyst. How are you doing, sir? Main Street Analyst, please go ahead. You've got Mr. Ayo. We're talking high inflation, weakening naira, and how we can invest. Also, you might go for it.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I just have a question, and it just mirrors the same concern that Mr. Kalu had. From the beginning, when that was around real estate, from the beginning of the conversation, we mentioned stagflation. So where there's rising inflation, and then there's still rising unemployment, and
I think I lost your audio.
and most landlords are defaulting on rent. Most tenants are defaulting on rent. We have seen data that shows more buildings are becoming more vacant. That is commercial buildings in Lagos and in urban areas like Abuja. So, like in the next 1 to 2 years, where will the return on investment come if the revenue or the disposable income from the citizen will not really match to, how do I call it? Because that ROI is actually coming from somebody else, either buying back that property or paying a rent on that property. And with the current economic situation, is real estate a viable investment option?
All right, so
Okay.
yes, okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks. I would say it's a viable investment when you go into the low to medium end, even the high end too, depending on your capacity. What if you location is very important. You need to be able to understand the area, the potential for development. Some even with the name of the area, it's appreciated because there will be demand that you are investing in. So once you first have that understanding, it will help. Secondly, even with the current high inflation, we used to say that people are still making money, and housing, people want to, home is like after food. Once you begin to have the opportunity, people want to also solve that particular problem. So with you are locking in a 3-4 bedroom that you want to sell, apartment that you want to sell later, whether it's a terrace, it's a semi-detached, and you would always see people that would be willing to also take it up. Even those that have moved abroad, they also want to um, have their houses also sorted out in Nigeria. So there's always demand, and that's why you look at GDP, the growth within the real estate, where you would see that it's continued to improve. Or you also want to look at construction, because construction would capture the activities going on there. Well, in terms of real estate, captures most of the one. That's the renters that we're seeing, or maintenance that we're seeing within that space. So that sector has continued to grow. It presents opportunities. During the recession, it was obvious it was down. Both construction and real estate was really down there. So now we feel that there are more opportunities.
So essentially, even with the recession, the slowdown, the lack of consumer spending, there's still that juice in real estate space. It's just going to be location, 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 more or less.
Yes, correct. Location is really important.
All right.
That's saying, if for those that are in Nigeria, you would say that even when you look at some axes that are not within the mainland, their prices of property, they are now competing with prices of property in some areas in the island, due to several reasons.
All right, let me get Olumide in here. Olumide, how you doing? We're talking inflation, money, Naira, and investing in Nigeria. What's your take?
Yeah, good. Hello. Interesting conversation. Actually, I don't want to comment on anything. I just want to ask some questions. I want to put our chairman Ayodeji on the hot seat. Very good topic.
Mr. Ayodeji is very, very humble. People don't know who he is really. He just said he's a financial professional, but I'll keep quiet.
He's a chairman in the industry. I always like his perspective, and I always, no matter how simple he analyzes, he gets really deep when you really understand what he's saying. So I have four feedback I want to ask, and it's just because I write in the space and a lot of people complain about this thing. So first of all, transaction cost in the NGX. I buy a stock, I sell the stock, I look at the transaction cost, 3 to 4%. It might not look like a lot of money, but just imagine someone pulls in 10 million naira a month on that. It looks very pricey. When you look at markets like the US, we use foreign brokers directly. You see that those charges are quite negligible. So this transaction cost, is there not something the NGX should look at? Because I even heard reports that stockbrokers are even complaining that they want to increase when we are already complaining. Then another question is, look at the introduction and IPO, the introduction arrangement and the IPO. It seems that the introduction strategy has not been too impressive in terms of return. Look at companies that have gone in through the introduction route. Is there a problem? Should we be worried about it? Then I also want to speak about market liquidity. Sometimes I call the NGX banking market, and that's because one of the easiest places to really sell and buy stock at face value. And Nigerian banks, very liquid, quite transparent. Their results come in quite faster than other sectors. Look at Wando, for example. Why do you think SEC took so long to throw the hammer? Is there something you want to comment about? Then lastly, I also want to talk about the prospect about the fact that we're seeing the US stock market looking at the 24 hours spectrum. We see that they already shooting extending hours. Is there anything the Nigerian stock market is looking on? Is there anything, and why is it that you guys, especially the traditional brokers, are not throwing your tentacles on social media? Look at the last data from CSCS. Bamboo had more account openings than the likes of big players like Afrifest, Cardinal Stone. Is this something you're not worried about, or you're just after the big boys? Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of questions. Please make sure you can come back and review as Mr. Ayo basically answers. So Ayo, he asked you a lot.
Yes. That's why he's the prof. So I'm the one on the hot seat. So interesting questions, and coincidentally, I'm also a stockbroker and a council member of this stockbroking association. Yeah. So starting with the transaction costs, I totally agree that is high. But before it can even be adjusted, there's a lot of work that has to be done around improving activities. So, when we talk about revenue, we say price times quantity. The quantity here is the activity. The price is the commission which you are speaking to. For brokers to be very profitable, so the cost of running that business is really very high. And there are a lot of things that needs to be worked on. It's only a few people that have been able to, maybe on a scale and also the perspective, and also maybe PFA affiliated and the likes, that sometimes are easily break even. So I think that if there's a lot of work, even from the exchange, the SEC, that's the SEC, and the operators, increasing the activities by improving on investor education. So we saw knowledge gap during the public offer, and people we had to start educating people what rights is, to mean how to take up your rights. Also, even buying and selling and buying the public offers, what's the difference from that buying on the floor, apart from the price differential. So these are things that I know that is also being worked on, because if the prices are very considerable, activities will also pick up. So with you on reducing, because I'm also an active trader, it's reducing the transaction cost, but would hope that activities will also really improve. You spoke about stocks that have been listed by introduction have not done well. Yes, so when before listing, sometimes it's based on valuation, and the essence for listing is for price discovery. That's like the number one. Yes, transparency, price discovery. So it's also very important that as individual, you would even also do your own high level valuation of what you think this company is worth. I know if you look at the latest one is Aradel. But I would say that, because I've also followed that stock, I would say that one of the major reasons why that even dipped after, because it's been trading on the NASD, on the NASD platform for years, is the news that CBN is not going to agree to the acquisition that people had priced in earlier. But we saw the rebound on Thursday, and it's tried to stabilize on Friday. But looking at one or two others that after the listing, it's not been very liquid. So what investors now needs to do if you are following the market is that, do you want to join upon listing, or you want to see a bit of price discovery and see a result before you also come in? So investors have that liberty or that option before you also come in into any particular stock that is coming on the floor. Market liquidity is really, there's a lot. I know NGX they have been trying to see how they want to improve on this. So you would see for the US market, where I also play very active, I buy options, I short markets, and those are some of those things. So on one particular stock, there are different type of activities going on. There are ETFs on it, there are options on it, people are there are warrants on it. People are trading on just one stock, so you are creating a lot of activities on just that stock. So there's a need to, I would say, NGX should just sustain and that momentum on ensuring that we have this market liquidity, improve it. If people know that, even if First Bank is not liquid, I'm just saying, for instance, if it's not very liquid, or can I what else can I short the stock if I think it also comes down? Some people think it can come down, they short. Some people think I can buy a call, I can buy a put on it. These are some of the things that, yes, it looks so complex, but people, even Nigerians, are trading it actively. Nigerians that are based in Nigeria here are trading the US market actively on those complex products. It means it can be done here if it's properly embraced. So on the Ohando, that's I would say it's the reason why we just saw the suspension. I think what will likely have happened, this is just my personal view on this, would have happened is, maybe given the pedigree of the company, the regulators trying to just continue to give like grace period. Okay, if you have promised, okay, let's give you a bit of grace period. But when it's now becoming very inconsistent, you have put a date, 23rd of October, you publish your financials, and again, nobody forced you to put that date. You should have put a date that you think you will be able to at least have, because market integrity is critical, and I think that's what the exchange is also trying to protect. So with what I also read their response, and which means that with what the NGX has also done, it's not also good for their projection, and they would want to ensure that the new date is 1st of November, or not before 1st of November, to ensure that their results are published, whether positive or negative, but at least for them to have the stock of the technical suspension, so that it doesn't turn over a long time turn into a full suspension. And I like the last question on the 22 hours. I was also reading it last week, and because I trade even off market, so as early as 9 a.m. Nigerian time, sometimes by chance I've started watching the US market. You can even short at that time. The only thing is you can't do market trades. You're able to do limit trades, and even up to 1:30 a.m. in the night. So I'm hoping that we'll have firms that also working with the exchange. What has happened? You see, what's the name of this very popular Robinhood, for instance? They created a platform where you can even trade 24 hours, because they're able to match trades on most of the stocks. They have the numbers in terms of customers that trade, which is what an exchange needs. So just the ability to be able to match transactions, because during these off-market hours, it is not all trades that are matched. It is not all stocks that trade actively within that period. So I think that this is also a very good opportunity even for the NGX for stockbroking firms begin to think how we need that extension rather than the 10 o'clock to 2:30 when US is already looking at 22 hours. So it's a call for a challenge that needs to also be looked on to expand that. Thank you.
And Mr. Ayo, just the key point Olumide asked was how come an app like the apps are able to go into the streets and get more new customers to basically participate, and then the big firms are not really able to. It's more like it's elitist, more or less. But this younger guy, Bamboo, is able to really go down. Is it because it's faster or it's cheaper? What is the issue in your view?
Yeah, so on that number, I also saw that data that Olumide post, and we tried to, based on the firm that I work for, AfroInvest, and also tried to look at the data. We've gotten more than 4 times of that sign up, even based on the data that we have. So trying to look at what the source of the information that they have. Yeah, so we you see for most of these top firms have also built platforms that also enables that for you to be able to trade, and there's no minimum. But I would say that for instance, not to take away from the efforts of the Bamboo and the likes, is that they have also the way they penetrated the markets. You would see like the way the fintech also penetrated, and it's also competing with the banks. So that's also now putting a lot of pressure for even the traditional stockbroking firms to also begin to be a bit flexible. The rules does not permit much of the flexibility, but within operating within the rules, it's also operating within the rules is also we are also trying to be like very ingenious to see how we can also begin to get more or to also grow faster. Bamboo started from US stocks. Then there were only very few firms that were trading that. So that's already a market. So now also introducing Nigerian stocks was easier for people to just, I have my stocks in one location rather than having Nigerian stock with one firm and having US stock with another firm. So I think they've also done very well, and is a call for challenge. The market is still there. When you look at the total number of CSCS accounts you look at active, is even still less than 1 million, with a population of, let's even say 50 million have the ability to invest, or even 10 million. Let's put it at that. Almost 5% of the population have the ability to invest. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And these are some of the things that are discouraging investors. Is the things Olumide has highlighted: transaction fee, time for settlement 3 days. US is currently 2 days. You look at those that are used to FX and crypto, one instantly. So these are some of the things that also the regulators are trying to see why they protect investors, to see the way they can improve on this.
Okay, perfect. Let's go to Jimo. We've got Jimo, Hosanna, and I believe Richard. So Jimo, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening.
Welcome, sir. You got your question for Ayo is here. We're talking inflation, Naira. What's your take?
Yes, I've been here for a while listening to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ayo. Lumide, thank you for what you've been doing for a very long time. I think for me, recently or now, it's good to invest in real estate and also stock due to the high inflation.
Hello, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. If you can't hear him, just go out, come back in. Mr. Ayo, you can't hear him?
Yes, I can't.
Oh, really?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Jimo, I can hear you, but Ayo can't hear you. So, Jimo, can you go? I don't know. Jimo, if you go out and come back in, I'll just add you real quick. Olumide, can you hear Jimo? Olumide can hear you. So, Ayo can't hear you, and he's the one to answer the question. So, perhaps you want to go out and come back in. Yeah, and I'll add you real quick. Let me get Hosanna. Hosanna, you've got the floor.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, the hosts, Kaluaja and Ayodeji, the speaker, and all listeners. I just want to lay a little emphasis on the real estate industry down here in Nigeria, because as a realtor and someone that has been in the real estate, at least in my own capacity for a while now, I have studied the statistics surrounding the business and the investment. And I can boldly and state with my grounds that the best time to invest in real estate, even with the inflation and Naira weakening, is now. Reasons I will support these facts, this point with some facts. One, investing in real estate now, first I will, okay, let me just bring it down to reality because it's a kind of trying to speak and also encourage anybody listening now. If you were thinking of maybe investing in real estate in Nigeria currently, should you or should you not? Maybe because of the inflation and the Naira weakening. And I'm here to just encourage you to invest now. Reason being that by now, even with the Naira weakening and the inflation, people, even the government officials, are all going into real estates. That is why you're hearing in some states, even the local and the urbans, about land grabbing. Oh, I got a property here. All of a sudden, government coming.
So hold on.
Why is government interested in land?
So Hosanna, just to be clear, you're basically making a point that real estate is where we should invest currently at the moment, right? That's the yeah. So I'm gonna get Ayo to come back on that.
All right, sir.
So Ayo, it's back to real estate. I think the only thing for me with real estate is the high cost of entry. But I think with the REITs and the mortgage-backed securities, like Hosanna is saying, it does give you that avenue to buy these depressed assets in Nigeria because the Naira is low. So if you have a foreign currency or you earn a lot, this should be a good entry point for you to get into that property side, right?
Yes, yeah, you would see that in my classification is for high income earners. Because I will also say it's heavy investors. Because you need to, I will always advise people, given my own little experiences, you need to work with experienced people in that space. Don't just, your hard-earned money, just go into that space. You want to just go and just buy a house. You need, in Nigeria, because of the complexity, you need to be able to verify that you are even buying what is very valid and has been verified. So, and that requires, it's just like if I'm going into the space, I use lawyers that understand the space. That's not my area. So if you have to pay additional 1% or 2% to a lawyer that understands that space or someone experienced that would guide you, it makes more sense than throw away the total money. That's why it gives a lot of value. It gives a lot of return. And Mr. Kalu, speaking to like the rental income, you would see, so for most people, you at least maximum people want to target maximum of 15 years, 20 years to recover their funds. If you are putting it apart from the capital appreciation, so that is put into renters, and that's why renting is already even also high in Lagos. Because when landlords consider how long it takes them to recoup the payback period, if we put it in the finance perspective on that. The REITs, so you would see that most of the REITs have not been performing very well due to the low rental value. So for low income earners going into REIT and you're getting 5%, even 10% return, I don't think is worth it when you can also get for a risk-free investment and get 20%. So it will be better to even put your money in dollar-denominated assets, because as that cost of building is also going up, when you want to also invest, you would also be able to, when you want to invest, can convert the money back from dollar to Naira and invest in the real estate if you are putting monies together.
Gotcha. Totally agree. But I think that's a good call by Hosanna. If assets are depressed, so in a bad time, so if you've got those long-term assets that you can invest away, and you can sort of quote unquote ignore, you might be looking at an opportunity right now. Jimo, it seems like you're back. Let's test that audio again. Go ahead, Jimo. Let's see if Mr. Ayo can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Carly.
Mr. Ayo, can you hear him?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, go ahead,
Jimo. Thank you, Lumide. For me, I think I'm not asking a question. I'm just trying to add up to the question to the topic. My own advice is that even despite the Naira not in good shape, I think for people in diaspora and people who are liquid back home, there are so many business they can invest in. I think I have two: stock and real estate. I personally have a company back home that is into construction, procurement, real estate, and what's it called? Borehole drilling. And I think if you have a good location for your real estate and you have a trust worthy company, you can invest with them, and with that, because now people are actually buying houses. If you have a good location, despite the costs, there are people that are ready to buy it. So people who have the money, who have the money, they can actually invest in some real estate companies. We have at least well-known companies on Twitter here, and you can also go offline to make your research. So investing in real estate now, I think, is hot cake, despite the Naira not being in good shape. And another thing is stock. I think Olumide has been doing wonderful to the public recently in terms of talking about financial engineering and giving people, lecturing people about how to invest in stock and other things. I think even if you don't have the full-fledged knowledge about stock, just following Olumide and following his step and making a little research, you'll be able to be in good shape. Yes, I know for my people that have followed him and Jimo, thank you for doing this. Olumide is doing well, and they've invested in stocks that he has indirectly advised to invest on. So I think stock and real estate, it's something that people can actually invest in right now. So that's just what I have. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Olumide, thanks for being that positive to the folks back home. Mr. Ayo, let's sort of wind it down. Let's sort of wind it down now. So right now, inflation trade in Nigeria was going down. It started to pick up a bit, just slightly. The Naira value, I'm not sure if I can say it has settled at 17. I'm not sure where it's going to go. So just a question for you. In your mind, where do you see inflation going to? Where do you see the Naira going to? We're approaching the end of the year. Traditionally, people come back home with dollars, so that should actually reduce the dollar demand in December, but we'll have January. Where do you see these two things going to, both the dollar and inflation, in the next, as the year draws to a closer?
Yeah, so I think that based on the demand that we still expect, Nigeria is still import dependent. Where we expect that there will be improved remittances towards the festive season, there will also be increased demand for imported items. We know that's the time people close. People spend a lot then. People break their piggy bank or their savings and try to spend it. And whatever they are spending on, there will always be an element of imported items. So we expect that there will be pressure also on the Naira. So I think that we should expect further depreciation, maybe around the 1819 levels even by December. The only condition that may not happen is that if we now see significant supply from the CBN, it's yes, you can do your analysis on projection, but it's a demand and supply market. No matter the projection or the valuation you're trying to do, if the CBN supplies significantly, it can keep it around these levels. In the last 1 or 2 weeks, we've seen it from almost 1680 to currently almost at almost at 1720, 1730. And I think that the pressure may also continue. It's also good not to forget that even January, people will also need FX for school fees of their kids to also pay again. So you will see that the demand is not going anywhere now, and there's a need to supply. So that's what I would say. The projection.
So if I that would more or less be like, is that midterm? I would say not pessimistic, but you are hedging, sir. You are more or less hedging.
Yes. So I'm not. And it's also scenario based. As an analyst, you wish that you can be able to accurately project. Your identity is only based on reasonable basis. So is as we are speaking here tonight, and CBN, they are also looking at, yes, we expect that demand would increase. Can they also increase supply? If supply improves, it will stabilize. It's a demand and supply game. It's just that basic. So if you have enough supply, if they have the ability to supply, then we should expect that things will also stabilize. If not,
go ahead, sir.
It get to 2,000 Naira to $1 by end of the year.
Wow. Any role for Dangote in the short term to do any mitigation? I know there's a Dangote fuels coming in. We've had 40% into forex savings. Is there anything that Dangote can do from now to say first quarter 2025 to assuage that demand for dollar? Is it going to happen?
Yeah, so there's still a lot of discussions that's going on. But if that happens, that 40% demand for imported fuel, but you also agree that when they also sell crude, so now you are doing Naira for dollar crude. So it means that the effect you're also supposed to get. For those that are more familiar with that area, you can also speak so you have done Naira for dollar. So it means that the dollars that you're also supposed to get that should support the CBN, you have also monetized. I won't say monetized. Pardon me. I would say the country has also, to create a bit of stability, you've offset. If I use that, I think a better word with that. So I don't expect that would. In fact, something interesting that the CBN governor, that was a bold statement that during FAC allocation, there's always pressure on the FX. That's very deep. It means that when some categories of persons collect FAC, it's changed. And what is expected, it should have been channeled towards development, and you spend in Naira. But if at that particular time things are changed, most of the FAC allocation is changed back to dollars. So you would see that's like you would say unproductive sector. You are buying dollars without, and that's creating significant pressure.
And again, because you have no cost. There is no cost per se, so you can buy at any rate, at 1900, at 1800. It doesn't matter to you. Your cost of capital is zero, so it doesn't really matter. It's crazy. Mr. I'm not sure how long you're going to stay. You've been here with us for about an hour 15. I've got Kainde, Moses, and Zero, and Kelechi. We could take very, very short 1-minute questions from them and then call it a day. I know I keep on saying that, but I just think that you have a very, very good resource I want to tap a lot from. So I've got Kainde, Moses, Zero.
We can still continue. I know the last time we cut it short. So
precisely, sir. So let's get Kainde. You've got the floor, Kainde. Please go ahead. Let's keep it very short and direct, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Ayo, Dr. Ayo. Thank you for speaking to us. Mine is not more of a question. It's just to corroborate what the doctor has said, I heard someone speak about the transaction cost on the exchange, and people tend to look at it from the broker's charging fee that is high and all of that. But some of the things we don't get to realize is the fact that there are so many regulatory charges that goes into the computation of what you're looking at. And in the market today, I barely see any broker that is even charging up to the maximum that is allowed by law, because the competition is stiff, right? And everybody wants to ensure that they retain their customers. So I think it's from the fee that is charged in other markets, you see, it's like a bundle, right? But here you have several layers of fees that you have to pay for the trading, and all those has to be addressed, not just the brokers cutting their fees only, but also at that top level of the regulatory fees. That's about that. And regarding real estate investment and stock, of course, both traditionally and theoretically, they provide some edge against inflation. But if we want to look at which one do you want to actually go into for this period, I heard people say real estate. Yeah, real estate is good for long term and all of that. But we always look at the real estate from one angle. We don't actually look at it from what's the cost of fund for it. If you want to put real estate up today, you want to build and you're going to finance it, what will be the cost to you? And does that investment make sense in the real sense, right? But that does not mean that there's no opportunity. Of course, for those that are doing maybe distressed purchase and sell, it might be something very good. But I want to get rental income. That is the reason why you say rates are not working, because most rates are collecting rental income, and the rental income and everything they need to have to distribute is far less than what people can get on a standalone risk-free investment. So it would be a hard thing to actually place when you look at cost of fund in that aspect. I think I'll stop at that. Just wanted to buttress what doctor has said so far, and I think that thing is probably, though we've been saying investor education for a very long time, but and we still keep doing that investors education, but our investor in Nigeria, I think, has seen a lot of youth taking more of gambling position than actually investing. Because if you can invest in crypto and so many other things, and you cannot invest in stock, I don't know how you place your risk appetite. And people need to understand that when you are investing, it's actually different from speculating. You can't expect to buy stock and within a week or second day you want to make money out of it. It doesn't work that way. You should be able to wait it out for some time and allow that investment to actually grow, and you see something very reasonable from it. And I think that's some of the things that happens in developed markets, where the account type you are investing through has already more or less placed some limit on how often you can trade, right? Because those accounts, they are actually for proper investing, and all these structures of having to go through a broker or an asset manager, if the kind of size you have cannot access the market. So those are some of the layers that has been put in place. So I think we still have a long way to go, but notwithstanding, it's not what it was before. That's my contribution. Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks, my brother Sakeni, for those wonderful contributions. So starting with you are very correct on the commission. You see, for most firms, you would even see that they charge as low as 0.5%. The maximum you are allowed based on regulation is 1.35%. But it still boils down to that when you look at it, even some of the big volume big ticket transactions that you see even come as low as 0.2%. And at the end of the day, most people, they make more money from trading the market than actually some of the commission that they get to even sustain that business. That's just the reality, because I've been opportune to run that kind of business in the past. But also on the real estate, yes, you just corroborated what I've said. Location is important when you are. So I can, if you look at, I know some areas that even as early as this year, a detached was going for around maybe 200 million, and now if you are going to buy, it's around 300 million. That's almost is it 25% within a year that you would see. Is it 25 or 50%? So that you would already see on that property. Renters is not encouraging. So even in finance, that you would see, I know those that have the ability to buy, they can buy a property, pay at once. But they've taken a lease that rather than tie down, they see other good opportunity to use that capital that will generate higher return. They just take a lease of 5 years, 7 years, and they continue to sweat that their capital, given their understanding on the area where they play. So is also really valid. So thanks so much, Mr. Kenny, for your contribution. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Let's get Moses. Moses got the floor. Moses Azuka, you've got the floor, sir. Let's get Zero Equilibrium. Zero. Please go ahead. Zero Equilibrium, not yet here. Let's get Kelechi Uchendu. Kelechi, please go ahead.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm Zero. Sorry. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm Zero. Yeah. Okay. I'll be quick. I'm just going to hit the title of the spaces, the investment and all that. And I'm sure you know I'm a sucker for fixed income. I think the yields are quite still. So I just want to highlight, for people who who could be listening, who are high net worth or could be earning in dollars. Naira is cheaper right now, so I feel like the yields on short-term government securities is still, and a rollover plan, say over the space of 5-10 years, could actually create some really handsome returns and hedge against both Naira inflation and Naira exchange rate depreciation, which I do not see going below 20% of where it is down. So that's it. But the second one now, it's a question concerning to you, Kalu, concerning I'm just trying to get an understanding concerning the oil and fuel thingy going on and the spat between Dangote and importers. I understand that Dangote needs protection, from competition from foreign refineries, which these importers buy PM from. But at the same time, Dangote needs to be able to meet local supply, which could be hindered by NNPC's inefficiencies, which we've seen. I'm not casting blame here or being political. I'm just saying what it is. And in that case, do you think that perhaps a middle line could be drawn where an import quota on refined petroleum could be placed, at a level where it could supplement for the shortfall in production from Dangote, either due to supply or technical issues, and at the same time not hinder or not really hinder the progress of or eat too much into the market of the local refineries. So what do you think about that mid solution in regards?
Well, I think if you place an import quota, you're going to increase local prices for Nigerians. I don't think that Nigerians can afford any more price increase in PMS or any other imports. So you should actually be doing a subsidy, not a price increase. I think the solution is simple. It's in front of us. Nigeria has crude oil. Dangote can refine all the crude oil that Nigeria has. What I mean Nigeria has, that NNPC has. So what we need to do is to give not just Dangote, all the local refineries, the guys that have invested in building a refinery in Nigeria, they must get crude oil. Give them the crude oil according to their nameplate. Let them pay in dollars. So you get the crude oil, you pay in dollars. With that crude oil, you can export to a jet A1, you can do whatever you want. But then you have to then sell that PMS back to Nigeria. You can input a cost there and say, because we are giving you crude and you're going to export your byproducts, we want you to create a fund. And that fund is now going to go towards the payment of subsidies. Subsidies should not go for everybody. It should be a means testing to say, if you have this type of car, you don't get a subsidy. If you are a public transport guy, you get a subsidy. If you file your taxes and you earn below so amount, you get a subsidy. We link your BVN, your NIN, your phone to Naira, and we pay you subsidy. So the fuel price can be 2,000 Naira per liter, no problem. But if you want to get cheap fuel, you register your phone, BVN, you get Naira from the government to then pay for that subsidy according to your income. So if you do it that way, you've eliminated smuggling, because nobody will smuggle PMS from Nigeria because it's 2,000 Naira per liter, the same as you'd get in Cameroon or Ivory Coast. But then again, you're able to then allow the poor folks in Nigeria to get that subsidy. So you're not subsidizing at the ports of Nigeria, you're subsidizing at the pump in Nigeria. And you do Naira, so it's trackable. You give them Naira, it's not cash. You go to the place, you pay with your phone, and you link it to the cell tower. So if I'm in Cameroon, your phone will not ping now because you're in Cameroon. It's not a cell tower. But if you're NIN in Katsina, in Karamoda, it will ping. Let them come to Nigeria and buy the fuel, no problem. But you can't take the fuel outside the country because your phone will not ping. And if you do it that sort of, if you have that kind of framework, everything will disappear. Lines will disappear, subsidy will disappear, the fuel will become cheaper, and the capacity of Dangote would improve. If Dangote gets all the crude he needs, Dangote can afford to then export crude byproducts and give Nigeria Jet A1 and PMS and diesel, and still at a lower price than what the NNPC. So it's not a fuel discussion, but that's just the layout. It's not a hard thing to do. But, there are lots of interest. There are lots of Nigerians that have refineries abroad. Why? Ask yourself, why would a Nigerian have a refinery abroad when we have the largest refinery, the second largest in the world or so, in Nigeria? So what is the thinking? Explain the thinking to me. You are a Nigerian, you have a pure water factory abroad. When in Nigeria we have pure water factories all over the country. It can only mean one thing, that you want the pure water factories in Nigeria not to produce pure water so that you can import pure water. Because it doesn't make any sense. There is no way imports can be cheaper than Dangote. No way. So if you have a refinery abroad, it's either you are hoping that somehow you can still bring in your PMS and still sell it, which means there's something else going on there. But like I said, not a oil and gas event, but I think the point is clear that it's not impossible to create frameworks, guidelines, and policies that allow that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get Kelechi. I think this is going to be.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir. No worries. Kelechi, you've got the floor. Then Mr. Kelechi, go ahead.
Good evening, Carlo. Good evening, Sir Ayodeji. So my question is about the fixed income. We've been talking about fixed income for dollar and other investment for stock, but I recently saw that the CBN has been increasing the interest rate to meet up with the inflation and other things that have been happening to the economy. So what do you think about the fixed Naira, the fixed investment for Naira? Is it advisable? Because I've been seeing rates up to 22-25%. So let's hypothetically, for someone that has very huge capital, let's say 20 million in a month, do you think this type of investment at 25% is still a good investment, judging by the current inflation and the dollar depreciation? So I just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, is it?
If it is a good thing to do, given the current economic realities. And also the high interest rate is also something juicy to look at. So what do you think? How do we strike a balance?
Okay, thanks. So I think that if you you would belong to the high income. So when we looked at it, if you like we said, the real estate's about 30%. We did like an allocation earlier at the show. Real estate about 30%, foreign currency asset about 25%, high yield fixed income, which is the 20-25% you're talking about, you can allocate about 20% to it. Equities, the high dividend yield, and for high growth sector as well as defensive sector, you can put about 15%, and maybe 5% in cash and alternatives. So for investment is now it can be bespoke, customized to understanding more of details of what you want to do. So if you're the type that don't like to take risk, so it means that maybe real estate even may be off, equities may be off for you. The high yield fixed income investment is fine, but you also need to put with that, you just do 50% in dollar fixed income. So with the amounts you have mentioned, it means that you should be able to put sizable dollars together and get higher rates, can be as high as 10% on your investment. So if you do that within the 50% in dollar denominated investment and 50% in high yield, you would, with what has happened even in the last 2 years, you would discover that you would even earn more, because when you convert the naira to dollars, the dollars to naira, the return will be far more than even what you'll be getting in the high yield fixed income investments. Yeah.
Okay, so from your projection, you don't see the exchange rate getting better or hurting at this particular point. Do you think it's going to stay high? Because it has come towards the place of stability. So I don't know if we can have stability at 1718. The going for the fixed, the high yield fixed income in naira is that not like a better option than doing the dollar? So if we should get stability at the current rate, do you think it will still be a good investment? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like the way you have put it. The first thing is what will make the naira appreciate. Do we have roadmaps that we can say that within the next 1 year we'll begin to see results? We know that beyond FX, the medium to long-term solution is our non-oil exports. What are we doing around that? And I've said different fora that we need to begin to pay much more attention to those non-oil exports. So when you look at the trade in goods data, you would see that 5%, when you look at manufacturing accounts for total, about 5% of total exports, agri is about 5%, manufacturing is about maybe 2.4%. So there's still a lot of work. So if most of the FX we are getting is from oil, apart from remittances, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And with the confidence that has been lost, it's always very difficult to build confidence once it's breached. So with confidence that has been lost in the naira, most people, even government officials, may prefer to hold their funds in dollars than in naira, even if they are collecting it in naira. So that is creating unnecessary pressure on the naira. So there needs to find a way, if that channel from even the FAC allocation can even be curtailed, we may see a bit of stability. so that it's focused on the productive area, people that want to import things to sell, then would see a lot of stability. But for now, I don't see any major light at the end of the tunnel. If maybe any blueprint that says that these things will stabilize, people are just being cautious, trying to see whether it will stabilize, whether it will move. Once we begin to see that it's going down the road, speculators also come in. But we are talking here about investment. We're not focused on speculation. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
But let me ask you, Mr. Ayo, is there a correlation with, say, strong or weak Naira and the stock market performance in Nigeria? So, for instance, if the Naira today was to strengthen to, say, 1 to 500, does that have a direct, is there any correlation with the stock market? Or if the Naira weakens more to 2,000, would that have a correlation? I know foreigners like it when Naira is weaker to buy, but is there a direct correlation, you think?
Yeah. So, at least based on even studies, there's also a positive correlation when I would say when the Naira depreciates, you would see more coming in. But the foreign investors are more focused on the policy. So if you are coming in, you would see that earlier this year when it got to almost 1,009, 2,000, they were projecting that it will appreciate. So immediately they saw the appreciation, the just short-term gain exceeded even both the fixed income and the equities market. So for now, with some of the volatilities that they're seeing, they don't have the confidence to come in. If any major depreciation of 10-15% has eroded whatever dividend that you're expecting to also even get the Nigerian market. So I would say that there's a strong correlation once, but what helps that action is the policy around the FX. I think last week we know the government of Asia, I think, what is it at IMF or World Bank program, and we are pitching Nigeria to investors to come into the country. The first question or the focus of the investors beyond that is around the FX. Is there clarity? There's been improvements, but the CBN cannot solve all the problem around our FX. They are more of a custodian. And with the policy that have been, the free float rate is going to put a lot of more pressure even on the CBN, because they don't have enough resources to continue to stabilize it. Because it's free float. If they don't supply, they depreciate. You'll see periods when there are a lot of auctions. When they come in, they do the FX auction. You see a bit of liquidity in the market and there's stability. So there's a need to improve that frequency, as even as we approach the end of the year, for us to see more stability in the FX.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I hear you. So in effect, if the Naira weakens, I'm not just spitballing here. If Naira weakens, that means $1 is worth more Naira, which then means that $1 can buy more Nigerian equity, more or less. Although it's a stronger thing for Nigeria to weaken. Okay, I got you. Toby, you've got the floor. Toby, go ahead. Yeah, Toby.
Good evening.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry, I just want to ask 2 questions. The follow-up to that question that you just asked now is, so for an ordinary Nigerian now, let's say a Nigerian invests, I don't know, maybe $1 million into NGX, right? And let's assume that the Naira strengthens, right? So does that mean that the person should expect, as per value-wise, Naira value-wise, right? That means that the person should expect a depreciation in the value of that shares because of a stronger Naira? I don't know if my question is kind of clear in that manner.
I don't know if Mr. Kalu got that.
Is it saying you invest in Naira to buy dollar assets? Did I get that right?
No. Investing. Let's say invest ₦1 million to buy a Nigerian stock. It could, let's just say one do for example now. So let's say for some reason Naira gets threatened, right? Do we expect the share price to reduce? I'm just asking generally, yes.
There's it's not a direct correlation, because when you buy a stock, that's why it's called share. You are buying a share of the company. So the reason why that share will go up and down is many reasons. The profits of the company, the future prospects of the company, but most importantly, the future earnings of the company. As a matter of fact, in finance school, they will tell you that the price of a stock today is the present value of the future earnings. That's the official definition. So if you buy a stock for 10 Naira, what you are saying is that the present value of the future earnings of that company is 10 Naira. So when you see the stock pickers trying to do is to determine if the intrinsic value of the company is higher or lower than 10. If you believe the value of the company is higher than 10 Naira, what do? You buy. If you believe the intrinsic value of the company is lower than 10, what do? So you understand, the price is changing, the value does not change. Like beans, if what beans gives you, the value of beans to your body is not going to change, but the price of beans in the market will go up and down. So what you're trying to do is to buy beans when the price goes down. You see, the price goes down. You don't buy beans when the value goes down. You buy beans when the price goes down, because you are getting the same value but at a lower price. So you're making a profit. That's the whole idea of stock picking.
Thank you very much. Then my second question would be that I think we are seeing some publicly traded companies, would I say, sell themselves out? I don't know. Like leave the country. Like in a way, I feel Nigerian breweries might be in that kind of scenario. They listed they gave a public offer, and I don't know, maybe like a week after they are declaring loss. So in my point, I feel like they are at a risk of, I don't know, probably leaving the country and somebody else taking over. So my question would be that, how does this affect a Nigerian investor? So for example, I know they'll be selling to maybe a new owner, which might be a Nigerian or might be a different European. How does that affect us?
Don't mix it up, bro. So when you buy shares, when I buy Nigerian brewery shares, I'm not buying from Nigerian breweries anymore. I'm buying from you or Ayo or Lumide, because it's the market. When Nigerian brewery sells its shares for the first time, either it does an IPO or PO, it sells shares from the company to you. When you want to sell your shares, you go to the stock market and you sell to me. So when the price is going up and down, it is investors buying and selling amongst themselves, not really Nigerian breweries. Nigerian breweries would have its own decisions based on other factors, but not on the share price per se. The share price is just where transactions happen, but the company might say we want to expand or we want to remain in Nigeria based on other issues, perhaps consumption, perhaps demographics, perhaps policies of the government, but not really the share price. Yeah. So don't get it confused a bit.
Okay, yeah. So the question I wanted to actually drive from that would be that, so in your expertise, would you, those companies in which they are changing, is it ownership or whatsoever? How effective do we are new owners that are coming to buy these companies that are leaving? What is like the prospect for their management in a way? So I'm very concerned about when these multinationals leave and somebody else come and take over their names and still continue to trade. Like what is the prospect? Are we so sure they would manage well?
Look at it this way. Look at it this way. You had Arsenal, right? And Arsenal used to have English attackers, Then now they brought French attackers. Let's say Arsenal sacked Thierry Henry, sacked Anelka, and replaced them with English strikers. So your question is, what's the prospect of Arsenal with English strikers? It depends on how many goals they score. It doesn't matter if it's local or foreign investors, but will the local investors, the local owners, now invest in that company and now grow market share? That's really your concern. If they are foreign players or they are local players, do they score goals? Do they create market share? Do they create earnings? That's the point. The first question you asked. The price of a company is future earnings. So if you think that you don't have confidence in the local owners, of course that means their earnings will fall. You see it, which means that their price is going to fall. But if you think that these local guys are going to come in now and have a better understanding of the Nigerian market, then of course you are interested in buying into that company because you think the local guys will do better. Many companies have left, Nigerians have taken over and have done better. And many companies the foreigners have gone and the company has done worse. It's down to who are the players on the pitch that day and how can they, win matches going forward without their coach or with their coach. I hope that gives you clarity. It's earnings. What generates earnings really what drives you, right? So I hope that clears it out for you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Thank you, Mr. Kalu.
Perfect. Thanks. Ogayo, let me just sort of wind it down. I think we've talked a lot about now the inflation rate, the Naira rate. I've asked you directly. You've given us an answer on top of listen, we have to grow. Oh, I've got Ken here. So let me get Ken to talk, then I'll close down the space if you don't mind. Ken, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very quick. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for being here and all the nuggets and knowledge you've shared. Just a quick question, and it's a preoccupation for me, looking at the fact that the CBN governor this last week mentioned something in a very subtle way. He said very soon the CBN will be taking action towards de-dollarizing the economy. And today we've talked about different options for people to invest, dollar, keep your wealth as much as you can in dollar and, stay invested. And, what I see, I don't know if you see it, I don't know if it's something you've analyzed in your sector, is the possibility of this government trying to go after dollars in domiciliary account. And I say that because we know how the government they do everything they can to look good to the international community and also to try and stabilize the Naira. And we know that, like you mentioned, yes, CBN governor also mentioned it, that every month when FAC goes out, the Naira loses value. That keeps happening every month and every time, and we see it happening, and they want to stop that. And the only way that they can do that right now and see the drastic effect is by, I don't know, maybe coming up with a policy of limiting the amount of dollar Nigerians can have in their domiciliary account. And we know what is going to happen to the Naira immediately in the market. Is this something you've analyzed? Is this something you're looking at? Can you share more light on what you think? Thank you.
Okay, sorry if I get can you just recap quickly? I think
what I was saying is that have you looked at this scenario where the CBN might release a policy anytime soon, in tandem with what the CBN governor said earlier in the week, that they have plans to de-dollarize the economy. And we know that over the years there's been a lot of investment products in dollars, offered by banks to a lot of Nigerians. Nigerians are invested in dollars now across different investment options, ETFs, bonds, and whatever Euro bond, and as you can and people even just hold it. They hold it and in their domiciliary account. Do you see the CBN coming up with a policy to put a cap on the amount people can have in their domiciliary account? And is this something you have seen or you see happening in the near future as a plan from the CBN to try to stabilize it?
Okay, yeah, thanks. And this is a very, very critical question. So I think that it will be in terms of converting people's naira to dollar. The CBN will not want to go that route because it will further. It's not going to improve the situation. No matter how we want to analyze it, it's not going to improve the situation. But what they can only do is to just encourage. So if you are putting a policy that the minimum dollars you can put in your domiciliary account, what of if I have the dollars and I need to use it for investment? So it's really very, very tricky. And the other option is everyone will move that domiciliary that funds to investments. There's no rule that can stop Nigerians from investing in dollars. So I think that they will come up with more. There should be more ingenious ways, and this is a demand and supply. So rather than channel efforts trying to restrict, the more controls that you put in a market that should be efficient, the more you try to destabilize that particular market, in my view. So I feel that focus should be more on how the CBN can further support the government initiative to improve non-oil export. Can we look at the top 10 items that we export? If we are doing 5% today, can we set a target that by next year we want to do 7%, 8%? And we put out the policies that would enable that. There's one major factor that may not be very direct that we don't speak about is insecurity. Is affecting everything. So if we need to get more things to export, then we need more people to be on the farm, planting and cultivating some of these products. And insecurity has continued to amplify. For those that follow FuseNet, it's a platform that is also supported by UNDP. That even in the north now, villagers pay to access their farmland as much as 30 million naira to access their farmland per head if you want to in some areas. So it's a public information of you see that these are some of the things that are going to restrict the non-oil export that we're talking about. And the inflation, when you look at food inflation, which is our inflation, food is about 50.7%. Food inflation is also a major factor that is responsible for the high inflation rate that we currently also record. Yeah, so I don't see that coming, but sometimes in Nigeria, you say some things are not possible, but eventually it happens. But it's almost unlikely that CBN would convert people's dollars to Naira or place a ban or force people to convert. It's almost unlikely. It doesn't solve the problem, even if that is done. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they themselves know that if they even hinted at that, all the dollars in Nigeria will disappear and no dollar will come in officially. Remember, there is dollars in Nigeria more than even our foreign reserves, but it's not in the Central Bank of Nigeria. These dollars exist in your pocket, in dorm accounts, in people's homes. It's more than your foreign reserves. But the reason why people don't take it to the bank is because of this question you are asking. So the CBN knows that they have to promote stability and safety. That's why they did the dollar bond in Nigeria. That was the first time Nigeria has issued dollar bonds in Nigeria. Euro bonds, as you know, are the bonds that we issue outside the home country, but we issued a dollar bond to compete with the quote-unquote DOM account. So those dollars would go to the dollar bond from the DOM account. So I will see more of that. I expect to see the CBN doing more of that, issuing dollar bonds to draw the excess dollars. I just hold it. Remember when we started this space, we asked a question: if I hold dollar in my hand, is that a good investment? And we figured that it's not a good investment. You have to invest that dollar bond. if you buy the dollar bond that Nigeria has just sold, you're getting nearly five, is it, how, was it 7% or so on that dollar bond or more than just keeping it in your back pocket. So that's the direction that I think they're going towards, issuing dollar bonds, diaspora bonds, to get the foreign currency off people's homes. Why do you want to hold dollar? It doesn't pay anything, right? Unless you invest it, it doesn't pay anything. So that's my answer. Ken, I hope that answers you.
Yes, yeah, it answers, but it's just a little bit confusing because the government is issuing dollar bonds in Nigeria, but again, CBN governor coming out to say they want to de-dollarize the economy. So
yeah, for transactions,
two different things.
No,
let's see what they do.
You know, if you go to many luxury flats in Lagos and Abuja, they are quoted in dollars. I think that's where what they are talking about, the direct commercial transactions in Nigeria using dollars. But for a security, you have security that are issued in dollars. It doesn't mean the currency is dollarized. It allows you to extend the available basket of asset classes, more or less. So that's a different topic entirely. Yeah, like DOM accounts have been in Nigeria even during the military. You understand? But doesn't mean that those DOM accounts were used internally. It was for exports and imports. Even the military understood. You know, back then you could be arrested. Fela was arrested for having foreign currency. Remember? But you could still have a DOM account because you are exporting, you are importing. They understand that you have to have that. What they don't want is for dollars to, like in Zimbabwe, where you have the dollar as legal tender or as a currency that is used day to day. Because once you have that, you lose monetary independence, and then that's essentially it's all over. Yeah.
Well, I would take them seriously. They first of all de-dollarize the customs sector. If I see they do that, then I will say okay, they are really heading in a direction the both of you have said. But as at now, I would prefer to be conservative. But again, thank you very much for the response.
Perfect. All right, Mr. Ayo, let's talk about is Invictus. Just maybe talk about the product itself. What can I do with it? I know about it personally, but I just wanted you to talk about it. Is that an avenue for me to invest in dollars? Just give me a rundown on that, sir, before we close.
Which product, please?
Invictus.
Sorry, not clear.
Oh, your own dollar, your dollar bond investments. Optimus,
okay.
sorry. Did I say Invictus? Optimus, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Optimus by Afro-Invest. Yes, thanks for the opportunity to speak about it. So, for what the platform, what it does is, it enables you're able to, we call it like a financial supermarket, so where you're able to invest and earn high yield investment up to about 20% on your Naira investment and up to 7% on your dollar investment. Then on the same platform, you can also invest in US stocks and ETFs. You know, when you can convert your money with a low cost swap, your Naira to dollar, and you can also enjoy investment. You also do Nigeria's stocks on it. So it's a financial supermarket where you can also invest. Afro-Invest has been in existence for almost 30 years and is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So that's the platform. So what we say is we democratize investment, ability for you to invest as low as 1,000 Naira, $1, and you begin to build your investment. So there are some that I do that on a daily basis. I'm debited for it. For some things that I may need in December on a monthly basis, it just helps you to build your capital and build your investment. So even if you want to go into real estate, you can take that money, you've got that, put the money together, you go into the real estate place. So that's so that's what it does for you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalu.
You're welcome, sir. I appreciate that. All right, folks. Exactly 2 hours we've been talking the Naira, high inflation in the Naira, the weakening Naira, and how we can navigate this, should we say obstacles and also opportunities. Remember, it's always an opportunity, even though it's an obstacle. Dr. Ayo has given us lots of practical suggestions with the ETFs. He has named the tickers. If you miss them, please go back and listen to the tape. I will share this after this is over. Just go back and play it back. He broke it down in terms of if you are high income, low income, which ETFs you can buy to hedge yourself and to also end that dollar investment. I think the summary was that because the Naira is facing those pressures, then you also have the opportunity to diversify away from one currency and away from one investing domicile, so that you increase your options not just for income but also for holding those assets in different jurisdictions. I totally agree to that. So get the tape, listen to it, and I think it would give you that knowledge that you need to move ahead. All right, folks, we've come to the very, very end. Again, remember, guys, I've got a book out. If you also want to read most of the stuff I have talked about, the ETFs, in my book, Let's Talk About Your Money, I do highlight a lot of them with the tickers, VOO, VTI, GCC, they are all in there. VNUX are all tickers that you have to know if you're investing from Nigeria. They give you access to the US markets, to dollar dividends outside Nigeria. So it's very, very important to know how those work. You must educate yourself before you invest. So do get it. It's available on Amazon. Order it, or get a friend to order it for you and send it to you in Nigeria. On that note, guys, let's call it a day. Let's call it a weekend. I'll see you guys here back on Sunday, 7 p.m. when we'll again talk about money, the economics, and again, finance. Dr. Ayo, thanks for answering our call to come educate us. We do appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back when we come to look at the financial year 2025. When the budget is out, we also want to get your view on where should we look at in terms of the budget and where can we put money in for the year 2025, sir.
Yes, definitely. Thanks. Always a privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, sir. All right, Olumide, everyone else, thank you so much for hopping in, and I appreciate you guys. See you guys next week. Do have a good time, and bye.